Without warning, the dark portal shifted red, and throngs of orcs poured out of it. This assault was able to severely damage Netherguard Keep, and claim Akrulon Hold in short order. Fortunately, Netherguard has had mechanisms in place since its inception to provide swift warning in the face of invasion, something held in renewed necessity by the Dark Portal's reopening 5 years prior. Within minutes, mages under Khadgar had spread word throughout Azeroth of this invasion. Within hours, the Horde and Alliance both were mobilizing what troops they could and sailing or flying towards the front. The heroes would have joined them, but they had another issue to be dealt with first. This invading force, the Iron March, had quickly reached out to and linked up with Hellscream loyalists in exile, including Zaela, survivor of the Siege of Orgrimmar. These loyalists stormed with the vanguard into Blackrock Spire, carrying with them an Iron Star. The intent, it seems, was to use the Iron Star upon the volcano to artificially induce a reaction similar to Ragnaros' summoning some 251 years prior, the very incident that birthed the spire itself. This would possibly destroy Ironforge, definitely obliterate Stormwind, and damage the continent proper on grand scale. It should be no surprise that Zaela was all in favor of a plan that would kill millions of people, the larger percentage of which are civilians. While Khadgar, Thrall, and Maraud led the forces of the Horde and the Alliance into the Blasted Lands, the heroes coordinated amongst themselves and raced to Blackrock Mountain to deal with the immediacy of Zaela's threat. Inside were the strange Iron March orcs, Dragon Maw loyalists, and Dark Horde survivors. The heroes' first major obstacle was Orbender Gorashan, a Shaper elementalist sent to learn as much as he could about Dark Iron rune shaping before their genocidal plan found fruition. After that was Kyrak, a survivor of Nefarian's sickly laboratory, who was busy attempting to make himself useful through this Iron March by securing them dragon eggs. Commander Tharbek is the Iron March leader, having spearheaded the charge to the Spire and frantically attempting to finalize their plans before they could be stopped by, the heroes, for example. Past this was Ragewing, one of Zaela's personal protodrakes, and beyond her, Zaela herself. Zaela at this point was blinded by her rage and seeking only revenge. She made poor sport for the seasoned heroes. With her death and the destruction of the Vanguard, the detonation of the Spire was prevented. The immediacy of this threat stopped, the heroes quickly sallied southeast towards the battlefields of the Blasted Lands, where the Horde Alliance force present had managed to push back the Iron Tide all the way to the portal itself, and was holding them presently. When the heroes finally arrived in the Blasted Lands, Khadgar, Thrall, and Maraud decided this was the time for their counterpush, and they charged through the Orcish lines, emerging from the Dark Portal into the Tanaan jungle on Draenor. We should probably explain what's going on here. In the wake of the Siege of Orgrimmar, Raytheon had a pretty stupid plan, but hear me out. Raytheon had spent much of his short life hearing stories about Azeroth's past, and one element cropped up more than most: the Demonic Horde. The Demonic Horde had been able to absolutely sweep Azeroth in the First and Second Wars, and was only stopped by internal squabbles and a multitude of chants. If he could just reform that organization, minus their fell weakness, he would have a uniform power without flaw, a force capable of besting the Legion. His plan was foolproof. This in mind, he reached out to the ambitious and foolish bronze dragon Kairos. Kairos sought a return to prominence over temporal affairs for him and his. But with the conclusion of the Cataclysm, all that titanic power had been drained, and the Bronze's mastery over time long gone. But there were still fragments, minuscule and microscopic essences of energy still remaining, primarily in the Titan artifacts left behind. One such artifact was the Vision of Time, which had three functions. First, it carried with it echoes and projections, snippets of time, only major events, as little ripples weren't enough to be detected by the device. Second, it could send someone to another place and time, although this was of minimal use and required substantial time to both power up and attune. And of course, it was a one-way trip for whomever journeyed. This ties nicely into its third function. The vision was always connected to itself. Thus, if one took a shard of it with them to another timeline, it would remain tethered to its other pieces. This would allow the possibility of two-way transportation, though you would still have to somehow design and power a portal on the other side, but you would at least have coordinates to aim at. And, as a side benefit, as long as the Vision's shards were tethered, the branching timeline would be maintained and not dissolve back into the timeways. Thus did Raytheon rescue Garrosh, ensured the Vision was empowered and attuned, and delivered both to Kairos. Kairos took Garrosh to the Draenor of the past, 35 years ago, just 4 years prior to the opening of the Dark Portal and the First War. The plan was for Kairos to use Garrosh to recruit many different forces of orcs across multiple temporary timelines, and evacuate all of them back to Azeroth, forming a horde of hordes, if you will. These plans didn't go very far, as Garrosh, upon arrival and hearing Kairos' explanation and plot, promptly murdered him and took the shard for himself. In brief, Garrosh was able to use the projections of time in the shard, as well as his own knowledge, to convince Grom Hellscream, his father, of his identity, and to ensure the orcs would not drink the cursed blood of Manaroth. He also, somehow, was able to impart the incredible genius of Siegecrafter Blackfuse upon Grom and his orcs. With this massive technological edge, under the coordination and concentration of combined orc tribes, a new horde was born. The Iron Horde. The Iron Horde had a brilliant plan to overcome their enemies. They had the coordination and infrastructure edge over the various forces of Azeroth, and so sought a lightning strike that would obliterate the Alliance headquarters, claim a beachhead in the Blasted Lands, and pour out from there across whatever remained. While there was a degree of merit in this plan, this is not the last time they would underestimate the Azerothians. This is the enemy the heroes faced before them, a unified, well-equipped, motivated army whose primary military force was concentrated right where they stood. Champions and adventurers fought against the tide of iron as the heroes quickly sought to disable the alternate Dark Portal any way they could. In short order, they discovered the captured warlocks of the alternate Shadow Council, whose essences were being used to focus and control the portal. This meant freeing alternate Gul'dan, a choice with many consequences, but in so doing, the Dark Portal shut down. Unfortunately, even the precious few minutes this took cost the Azerothians dearly in blood. While more than a match individually for any Iron Horde trooper, the Iron Tide washed over them by sheer numbers, and one by one champion and adventurer fell to pure attrition. By the time the portal silenced, only few remained. Heroes, Thrall, Khadgar, Maraud, Cordana, Lady Liadrin, Ariok, and a few others. Recognizing the danger, the troop fled into the dense jungles of Tanaan. They were deep in enemy territory, with the primary enemy force fully mustered and able, and despite their incredible power and skill, it was all they could do to stay one step ahead of their pursuers. Ariok, son of Eitrig, remained behind to delay the bleeding hollow that they might escape. As they fled his sacrifice, they freed several nearby captives, designated fodder to fuel the portals, as well as discovering alternate Drekthar and alternate Maladar, as well as a young Draenei priestess named Yrel, and an older Frostwolf orc named Gunnar. While doing as well as they could, they were running out of places to hide. It was time to accomplish their primary objective, destroying the Dark Portal. While shutting it down dealt with it in the short term, and they would later have to determine a long-term solution, destroying it entirely would be a good mid-term goal, giving them time to recoup and move forwards. The Horde Alliance force captured and repurposed the Iron Worldbreaker, a colossal tank that actually shot whole iron stars as ammunition. As one might imagine, this was damage sufficient to destroy the Dark Portal. That just left tens of thousands of Iron Horde ready to swarm and kill the survivors. The heroes and their troop fought a fighting flight towards the docks, splitting into two groups as they seized two Iron Juggernauts and fled at full steam. Though it had cost a great deal of blood, the Iron March was halted. Thrall and his heroes took their Iron Juggernaut the long way west to the Frostfire Ridge, while those with Maraud sailed a short way south to the violet fields of Shadowmoon Valley.